Mad Max Fury Road. This is a movie I've really been interested in seeing. And honestly, when I first heard of this movie going into 2015, it was not really a highly anticipated movie. I just ignored its existence. However, it started to get a lot of praise. And I mean a lot of praise. It was a huge, massive, critical hit, and I even had friends at school telling me that I should go and see it. And so finally, just a couple days ago, I finally brought it up to myself to finally sit down and give the movie a watch. And my goodness, the critical praise I've seen from this movie is mind-blowing. People like Chris Stuckman has given it such positive reviews. In fact, if you watch Chris Stuckman's review of this movie, he actually gets so excited about the movie, he practically blows up the microphone for his video. It wasn't just YouTube critics, but on Rotten Tomatoes, even those reviews were extremely positive. In fact, I'm dumbfounded to say that Mad Max Fury Road, according to Rotten Tomatoes, is apparently better than Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Die Hard, The Lord of the Rings, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and the original Star Wars. This movie had better be really good if it's better than all 5 of those movies I just mentioned. So here's the question, is Mad Max Fury Road really that good? That is a question I'm going to answer. This is Mad Max Fury Road. Now, I'll be honest, I have heard of the Mad Max movies before. I haven't seen the original movie, I hadn't seen The Road Warrior, and I haven't seen Thunderdome. But I did see the 4th one. And the reason for this is because I'm not old enough to watch the original, and since this one was apparently such a masterpiece, and I'm just old enough to watch this one, I decided to go ahead and go straight into Fury Road. Fortunately, I can go straight off and say that the story for this movie is rather simplistic, and it actually feels like a very episodic movie, so newcomers like myself can actually go straight into Fury Road and get away with it. One thing I've noticed about this movie is that its ultimate goal is basically just to entertain you and just to be fun. So, in order to do that, it keeps the story very simplistic. In fact, I can even say that plot-wise, this is by far the easiest to follow action film of 2015. Basically, the story for this movie is that Max is captured by a group of insane people that have massive control of the water and sort of controlling these people. While Max is getting captured, this group commands this woman to take this truck with all this content to another location. However, not too far down the road, she takes a direction that she's not supposed to take into some other territory that she's not supposed to be in. So this insane group decide to go and chase after her since she went the wrong way, and since Max has been captured, Max is dragged into the situation. One thing I like about the story is that since the story is really just supposed to be an entertaining movie, you're supposed to just have fun, the story is simple, and when you really think about it, it's really just an excuse to get all these characters out in the street and so we can have some crazy action scenes. And don't worry, I'll get into those action scenes later on in this review. And character-wise, well, our main character Max is actually a rather vulnerable character. Now, I don't know much about this Max character from the original trilogy because, as I pointed out to you before, I have not seen them. One thing I like about this character Max is that this character is vulnerable. For starters, it brings tension into the story. If the main protagonist is in peril, and like they are in trouble and they are getting kicked and thrown across rooms and everything, then it makes us feel sorry for the guy because we want to see this guy win. And knowing how he's just getting thrown about and how he's vulnerable, we can see that he actually can lose the battle. And it just allows us to root for him, as well as bringing more tension, because we want to see this guy succeed, and it looks like the character's not getting that. Despite being the main protagonist of the movie, he doesn't really have that much dialogue, but he's vulnerable. When someone punches him, he would fall to the ground. And I like how he's vulnerable because it makes me root for him and I care about this character despite the fact I don't know him. Yeah, so I've watched a movie like Mad Max Fury Road and I actually care more about a character with very minimum dialogue, and yet I spend an entire movie trilogy with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and yet by the end of the 3rd movie I still don't care about these characters. This movie is an accomplishment in my opinion. There's also a lot of things that he tries to do that he finds extremely difficult. Like that metal mask thing that he's forced to wear. It actually takes him a good 45 minutes into the movie to be able to finally get that thing off him. He doesn't just immediately grab it and just remove it. No, it takes time. He does everything he can to get that thing off his face, and it takes him a good 45 minutes into the movie until he can finally get it off him. And this movie also has a very, very strong female character. I'm a strong believer that there should be strong female characters in this movie, but they shouldn't be unrealistic. And in my opinion, as far as action goes, this might be one of the most well-balanced female characters I've ever seen. As far as physical strength, she is by far probably the strongest character in this movie. But emotionally, she is vulnerable, she is emotional, she has a past, she has a motivation, she has a goal. She is trying to do something. And the fact that she shows emotion makes her feel like a realistic person. And I really do buy the chemistry in the relationship between this character and Max. There's also a bunch of side female characters that are sort of dragged into the situation. They sort of sit in the back of the truck that has to be driven by Max and this other woman. And while they were basically being rescued, they're also rather strong characters as well. They don't just like sort of make broken nail jokes, or not fussy, or they don't just scream for help, but they actually go out and do things. If there's something wrong with the truck, they will actually go and try and fix that problem with the truck. But they actually try to contribute to the plot. And there were so many female characters in this movie that were strong, and it really helped with the climax, because one thing I loved about the climax of this movie is that there was really this great sensation of teamwork. It felt like all the main protagonists that we started to learn and get to know were all working together, and they're all collaborating to try and achieve their ultimate goal. But it's their excellent writing that makes these characters feel believable. If a situation like this actually happened in reality, I would expect these characters to sort of act the way they do in this movie. The movie feels realistic with excellent writing in the characters. And then there's the villain, who I was expecting to just be this awesome guy, like he just did awesome things, and while that really is what he is, he's this awesome guy who does awesome things. But I was also glad to see that there was actually a scene or two in this movie where I felt genuinely sorry for the guy. However, the problem I had is that while they did try to sort of make you feel sorry for the guy, and they did, just as I was starting to get emotionally invested into this guy, it's very quickly glossed over. And honestly, one of my favorite characters in this entire movie is the character Nux. This guy is great. He has a motivation, he has a past. I just love this guy, and I'm not really going to say much because, well, just watch the movie. There is so much about his personality. He has a personality, he has a motivation, he has a past, he has a goal. This guy has so much dimension, and I got really invested into this character, and he might be my favorite character in the movie. And so, ultimately, yeah, I grew very invested in pretty much all of the characters in this movie. I feel like I would split these characters in this movie in sort of two categories. Those that I got emotionally invested with, and the characters I thought were just plain awesome. Like the blindfolded guy who stands on this stereo-like stage and has an electric guitar, and he plays the electric guitar with flames shooting out of the neck of the guitar. And then, there's the action. Oh gosh! There's the action. Now, the words I've been hearing to describe this movie is crazy, insane, chaotic, those type of words. And I will say that yes, this movie is nuts. This movie is insane. It's crazy. It's chaotic. But I thought it was going to be insane, chaotic, and all this crazy stuff throughout the entire running of the film. And to my surprise, it actually slowed down quite a bit in the second act of the movie. When I look at the first and third act, yeah, I can see what people mean when this movie is crazy and nuts. But in the second act, the movie actually slows down quite a bit, and it's probably to build up character. And the movie doesn't become a bore, because every scene feels important in the second act. It feels like it's one of those movies where you can't go to the bathroom if you were watching this movie in theaters. Every scene feels like it needs to take place. If there was one scene in this movie that was taken out of the movie, you'd miss something important. And since every scene in this movie feels important, it prevents the movie from becoming a bore. When I saw Terminator Genisys in theaters, this is the movie I thought I was gonna get. Now, again, I will say that in my opinion, I feel like some of the most intense moments in this movie were again in the trailers. But I didn't feel like there was too much of it to ruin the experience for me. And the main example I'm thinking when I'm talking about this is the sandstorm scene. This is by far the craziest scene in the entire movie. The amount of intensified color, like the white, the red, the explosions, the gunfights, the chase. That scene is the definition of insane. That scene is nuts! And it gives you a glimpse of that scene in the trailer. And it was by far my favorite scene in the movie. My only complaint about that scene is its placement in the film. With a scene that is so crazy and chaotic, I was expecting that scene to be in the climax of the movie, like to be the final battle. But guess how far into the movie it is? It's only within the movie's first 20 minutes. And so the most intense action scene in the movie, in my opinion, is gone. Now don't get me wrong, the climax was still a really good scene because I felt about the characters. I cared about the characters and I wanted to see them succeed. But I just feel like that if we had the teamwork and the working together vulnerable aspect of our characters when we all got to know them, and then put that in a sandstorm environment, I think that environment and the characters would make an epic climax. And so I feel like the climax of this movie had some missed potential. So get the environment of the sandstorm scene, and the characters and the knowledge of our characters and us caring about the characters from the climax, put them together, and I feel like I would have enjoyed the action even more. And just so you know, I'm not giving this criticism to sort of just bash on movies. I love movies, and I am also someone who likes to see things improved. Like if there's a movie I see that's good, and I want it to be better, I want it to be able to improve in some way, and in my opinion, I think if we got the sandstorm environment with the climax characters, I feel like the movie could be improved and made even better than it already is. But for what we got, this was definitely a very entertaining film. I would even put it in my list of my top 5 favorite action movies of all time. If you want a good action film with a lot of car chases and explosions and gun brawls, this is definitely a good movie to check out. It's a lot of fun and it's just extremely entertaining. Do I think it's a masterpiece like everyone else says though? No, I honestly don't. Movies like Terminator 2 Judgment Day I feel like have much more engaging story and characters to them, and since I'm so involved in the story and the environment of the movie, I'm just more sucked into movies like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and there are just a lot of aspects of that film that makes it the superior film. But as far as mindless entertainment goes, this movie's still really, really good. I wouldn't consider it a masterpiece like everyone's been saying it is, but for an entertaining action movie, that's really all it's trying to be, and it succeeds. It just wants to be an entertaining action film, and that's really what it is, an entertaining action film. Want a good action movie? Go and check this movie out, it's a lot of fun. It's one of the best action movies of 2015. I had so much fun watching this movie, I'm definitely looking forward to watching it again, which is why I will say that this movie is without doubt worth buying on DVD. Maybe even on Blu-ray. On a different subject matter, my Battle of the Flick video for Jumanji vs. Sathura are currently in the making. I have actually shot the video already and I just need to edit it, and so that will be out rather shortly. So that is my review for Mad Max Fury Road, and honestly, I can't really think of any creative ways to end off my YouTube videos, so in fact, why don't you come up with something for me? How would you like me to open up and close my YouTube videos? I want to sort of come up with some sort of catchphrase that I can say that will close up the video, kind of like how Jeremy Jahns has his punch to screen, and Chris Stuckman has his get Stuckmanized catchphrase. I think I'd like to have something like that myself, but I can't think of any good catchphrases, so why don't you come up with some for me? Go nuts in the comments. Whatever you can come up with, let me know and I will pick my favorite and I'll start using it and just sort of experiment with it, and whatever I like best I'll use. So look forward to that video, but until then, I'll be back.